parents applauded when giving me the bill while my brother got a BMW. "That's all you get," they laughed. I didn't say a word, packed up and disappeared. Today, 6 months later, they stood crying in the rain outside my door. I never thought I'd be the one to cut ties with my family. In my dreams of the future, I always imagined myself as a devoted son who would stay to help my parents in their old age, no matter how difficult the circumstances. I'm Daniel, 22 years old, and I have a twin brother named Jason. Although we were born just 7 minutes apart, my entire life has felt like I've been living in his shadow. Growing up, we were always treated differently. Jason was the golden child, athletic, good-looking, popular, beloved by everyone. In my parents' eyes, he could do no wrong. And me? I was the quieter one, preferring to immerse myself in books and computers rather than out on the soccer field or at weekend parties. I can't say I hated Jason. No, I didn't hate him. But there was always an invisible rift between us, a gap created not by us, but by how our parents treated us. "Daniel, why can't you be more like your brother?" That was a question I heard far too often throughout my childhood. "Look at what Jason's doing, he's made us so proud." I really tried to find my place in this family. But the older I got, the more I felt like an outsider in my own home. By the time we were 16, I started to realize that if I wanted anything in this life, I'd have to do it myself. So, I began freelance work online, web design, basic programming, content writing, anything I could teach myself and earn money from. Every penny I earned was carefully saved. Unlike Jason, who could easily ask our parents for money for anything he wanted, I knew my future depended on me alone. "What are you doing, sitting in front of that computer all day?" my mother would often ask with annoyance. "Go outside, make friends like Jason. Look at how loved your brother is." I'd just nod and continue with my work. Late at night, when the house fell quiet, I worked under the dim light of my computer screen. Each line of code I wrote, each word I typed, brought me closer to freedom, freedom from Jason's shadow, freedom from expectations I could never meet, freedom to be myself. 4 years later, both Jason and I graduated from college on the same day. For me, it was a massive achievement. I had worked while studying, paid for most of my tuition myself, and still maintained good grades. I had saved a significant amount of money, not enough to be wealthy, but enough to give me a good start in life. Jason, on the other hand, had 4 years of what you'd call a typical college experience with parties, friends, and experiences. Our parents had paid for everything. Our graduation day was unexpectedly beautiful, clear blue skies, not a cloud in sight, flowers blooming all around campus. I could feel the excitement in the air as we donned our gowns and caps, ready to step into the world as adults. After the ceremony, our family gathered in the school parking lot. My parents had been constantly taking pictures of Jason and talking about their wonderful son to anyone willing to listen. I stood on the sidelines, a forced smile on my face, trying not to show the hurt that was still simmering inside. The next day's sun rose with the promise of a fresh start. My parents had said they had something special for us, a surprise to celebrate our achievements. I didn't know what to expect, but there was a tiny glimmer of hope that, just once, I would be valued as much as Jason. We stood in the yard, the summer sun beating down, and my father pulled a cover off a large object. It was a brand new BMW, gleaming black, shining in the sunlight. Jason gasped, his eyes wide with undisguised amazement. "Do you like it?" my father asked, a broad smile on his face. A brand new BMW 3 Series. Nothing but the best for our wonderful son. Jason laughed, jumped up, and hugged our parents, as if they had just handed him the keys to the world. I stood there, trying to smile, genuinely trying to be happy for him. But that familiar feeling, a mess of emotions including jealousy, hurt, and anger, rose within me. I wasn't expecting a car. No, that wasn't my style. But at least something, right? A sincere gift, an acknowledgement of my efforts, or even just a hug and the words "we're proud of you." Yet there I stood, empty-handed, trying to smile for my brother while my heart was breaking. But then my mother turned to me, handing me a plain white envelope. The envelope was presented with such a casual gesture, as if it was just an afterthought. "And this is for you, Daniel," she said, her voice excited from Jason's joy. I took the envelope, my heart beating a little faster. Maybe it was a check, or an offer to help me rent a new apartment, or even just a card with kind words. But when I opened it, I saw a single folded paper. I unfolded it and stared at the numbers in front of me. It was a bill. A detailed invoice, listing all the debts my parents owed, loans, credit cards, monthly mortgage payments. And at the bottom of the page, a circled number, $58,642. I looked up, confused and shocked. What is this? My mother smiled, as if she had just handed me the greatest gift in the world. We thought it would be fair, Daniel. You've been working for years. You've saved up a lot. It's time you started helping the family. My father nodded, patting my shoulder. Jason hasn't saved anything. He'll need help to start his life. But you're responsible. You've earned money. This is just a small way for you to contribute to the family. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. They weren't giving me a gift. They were transferring their debt to me. They had spent money buying a luxury car for Jason, their golden boy, and handed me a bill as if I was obligated to pay it. I turned to Jason, hoping for, I don't know, maybe a bit of sympathy, some recognition of the unfairness of this situation. But he just shrugged, his eyes still not leaving his new car. Come on, Daniel, you always said you don't care about material things, remember? Jason said, rolling his eyes as if I was overreacting. You like saving money and all that. You don't need a car. That was the moment I knew. That was the moment I realized that to them, I wasn't a son, a brother. I was an asset, a walking ATM, a means for them to continue their reckless and biased lifestyle. I took a deep breath, trying to control the wave of anger and hurt rising inside me. I folded the paper carefully and placed it back in the envelope. Thank you for this, I said, my voice even, revealing no emotion. This is truly a valuable lesson. My mother beamed, misinterpreting my calm face as acceptance. I knew you'd understand, Daniel. You've always been the understanding, responsible one. Jason had gone back to his car, running his hand over the sleek surface, completely indifferent to the storm forming inside me. I smiled, but it wasn't a real smile. It was the smile of someone who had just realized that everything they thought was real, family, unconditional love, mutual support, was just a cruel joke with them as the only victim. I'll go upstairs and pack, I said, walking away before they could respond. In my bedroom, I stood motionless for a moment, trying to process what had just happened. The image of Jason jumping with joy, my parents proudly embracing him, the gleaming BMW shining in the sunlight, all of those images contrasted with the bill in my hand, the hollow feeling in my heart. I began packing methodically, putting clothes, books, and electronics into suitcases and backpacks. I didn't take much, just what I really needed. There would be no tears, no dramatic farewell scene. Just a quiet, definitive decision to leave. When I carried my luggage down the stairs, Jason and my parents were still admiring the new car. I walked past them, heading straight for the gate. Daniel? My mother called, finally noticing that I was leaving with luggage. Where are you going? I stopped, turned around. I'm leaving. Going where? My father asked, finally tearing his eyes away from the BMW. Away from here, I said, my voice surprisingly calm. I won't be coming back. There was a moment of confusion on their faces, as if they couldn't understand why I would do that. Don't be so dramatic, my mother said, waving dismissively. If you really want, we can discuss getting you a used car. I shook my head, anger finally seeping into my voice. This isn't about the car. This is about how you've treated me all these years. This is about you buying a BMW for Jason while handing me a bill for your debts. You don't even see anything wrong with that, do you? Daniel, we've discussed this. My father began, his voice growing tense. No, we haven't discussed anything, I cut him off. You just decided this is what I deserve. Well, this is what you deserve, a son who will never come back. With those words, I walked out the gate, not looking back. I could hear my mother calling my name, but I didn't stop. I kept walking, step by step, towards a life that I would define for myself. The first week after I left, I stayed in a cheap Airbnb in a city not far away. I had booked it for a week, giving myself time to think and plan. Fortunately, my freelance work didn't require me to be in a specific place, all I needed was my computer and an internet connection. I started receiving calls from my parents on the second day. At first, I let them go to voicemail, but after a few calls, I started turning off my phone. I didn't want to hear their voices, didn't want to hear the excuses or the rationalizations for their actions. I was afraid that if I talked to them, if I got pulled into it, I might soften, might forgive them too soon. By the fifth day, Jason started texting me. Come on, Daniel, don't blow this out of proportion. Come back, Mom and Dad are worried. I stared at the phone screen, reading that message over and over. Blowing it out of proportion? They bought him a car worth tens of thousands of dollars while handing me a bill of debt, and I was blowing it out of proportion? I blocked his number without bothering to reply. As the second week began, I found a small apartment to rent long term. It wasn't big, Just one bedroom, a small living room, kitchen, and bathroom, but it was mine. I used part of my savings to pay the deposit and 3 months' rent. It was the first step in building a new life, a life that I created for myself. I gradually settled into a new routine. Mornings for work, afternoons for walks around my new neighborhood, evenings for reading books or watching movies. It was a simple life, but it was my life. No one comparing me to Jason, no one setting expectations I couldn't meet, no one treating me like a disposable tool. By the end of the second week, the messages and calls began to change. "Daniel, my dear," a voicemail from my mother. "We're struggling. You know we've always supported you, can't you help us out a little? Just a little." I laughed bitterly. Supported me? They had taken me for granted my entire life, and now they dared to say they had supported me? Day by day, the calls and messages grew more desperate. I could sense the panic in their voices, the urgency in their pleas. But I still didn't respond. Not because I wanted them to suffer, but because I needed this time for myself, to heal, to understand, and to redefine my boundaries. A month passed, and I began to feel something I had never felt before: peace. Not every day was easy. Sometimes in the evenings, when the apartment got too quiet, I missed my family, not as they had been, but as I had hoped they would be. But most of the time, I found myself enjoying this new freedom, this feeling of living without having to worry about always being second best. Then, one evening, as I was checking my emails, I saw a message from my father with the subject line, "Please read this." I hesitated, my finger hovering over the delete button. But a part of me, a part that was always curious, always hoping they might change, made me open the email. "Daniel, we're in trouble. We took out some loans that we can't pay back, and we thought we could manage, but things are getting worse. Jason has no means to help us, and we thought you wouldn't mind. You've always been so independent, so responsible. We misjudged the situation, and for that, I'm sorry, but we need you. Please, at least call me back." Dad. I read that email several times, trying to search for a real change in attitude, a genuine acknowledgement of what they had done wrong. But all I saw was a formal apology for misjudging the situation, followed by another request for me to rescue them from the consequences of their own actions. They weren't sorry for how they had treated me all these years, not sorry for disrespecting me, not sorry for giving Jason everything while giving me nothing. They were just sorry I had left, because now their perfect golden boy couldn't help them, and they needed me. I closed the email without responding, a cold feeling spreading through me. They still didn't get it. They still didn't see the real problem. A week later, my phone rang with a call from Aunt Karen. I stared at the screen, my finger hovering over the reject button. Unlike my parents, Aunt Karen had always treated me fairly. She wasn't much involved in the day-to-day favoritism, but she often tried to mediate when there was conflict. After a few rings, I picked up. "Aunt Karen?" I spoke, my voice gentler than I had intended. "Daniel," her voice was soft, almost pleading, "can we talk for a moment?" I sighed, feeling weary to the bone. "About what? About my parents?" "They're worried about you, Daniel." "Yes, I know," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "But I think they're more worried about themselves right now." There was a long pause. We both knew I was right. Then, Aunt Karen sighed. "Please don't be like that, Daniel. They made a mistake. They thought you would understand. They didn't mean for things to turn out this way." I could hear the desperation in her voice, but I wasn't backing down, not now, not after everything. I took a deep breath and asked the question that had been gnawing at my mind for days. "Why, Aunt Karen? Why did they buy Jason a car if they're struggling? If they're in debt, how could that happen? How could they think that was okay?" Another long pause, as if she was weighing her answer. Then finally she spoke, her voice shaky. "I don't know, Daniel. They thought they could manage. They've always wanted to give Jason the best, and they thought it would be a good way to celebrate his graduation. They never imagined you would leave over it." I felt the weight of her words, but it didn't change anything. My parents had always put Jason first, given him anything he wanted, and now they had crossed a line I couldn't ignore. What about me? I couldn't keep the bitterness out of my voice. What did I get for graduation, huh? A bill for their debt. She was silent for a moment, and I could imagine her helplessly searching for words to defend my parents' actions. "They didn't know how to show they were proud of you, Daniel. They thought you would understand because you've always been the responsible one. But they were wrong, and they regret it, they really do." I shook my head, though she couldn't see me. "It's not about that, Aunt Karen. It's about respect. It's about how they've treated me over the years, how they've always put Jason on a pedestal and expected me to take care of everything else. I could feel the anger rising, but I kept my voice steady. They didn't give me a car, an opportunity, or even a proper thank you for all the work I'd done. Instead, they gave me their problems, and now they want me to fix them. Aunt Karen was silent for so long that I thought the call had been disconnected. Finally, she spoke, her voice softer than before. "Daniel, I think they're finally realizing they've made a mistake. They just don't know how to fix it. Please come home, let them make it up to you." I wasn't sure I could. The emotional burden was too great. But something inside me softened, just a little. I had always loved my family, no matter how much they had hurt me. "Maybe," I said. "But they have to show me they're serious. This can't just be another excuse. If they really want to fix things, they need to prove it." Aunt Karen sighed with relief. "Thank you, Daniel. I know this isn't easy." Before I could respond, she added, "But there's one thing you should know. Jason has been calling me too, and he's been asking if you're coming back. He's not as indifferent as you think." I frowned, not believing my ears. "Really? He's actually concerned?" "Yes," she said softly. "But it's not just that. He's starting to see the bigger picture. He's beginning to realize how much you've done for the family and how he's taken it for granted." I didn't know what to make of that. Jason, the golden boy, recognizing his actions? It seemed too good to be true, but perhaps, just maybe, things could change. After the call with Aunt Karen, I thought more about reconnecting with my family. I still wasn't sure I was ready, but there was a vague sense that this wasn't the end of the story. But then, 2 days later, my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. I answered reluctantly. "Daniel?" Jason's voice came through, trembling and urgent. "Yeah," I replied, my voice cold, feeling like there was an ice block in my chest. Jason's voice shook, and there was a long pause before he spoke again. "Daniel, I'm sorry, but things have gotten worse. Mom and Dad, they're not listening. I tried talking to them, but they're so stubborn. They kept insisting they would manage, but now they've had to sell the car." My heart sank, but a part of me couldn't help but feel vindicated. Sweet justice served, even if it tasted bitter. "They sold the car?" I repeated, my voice cold as ice. "Yeah," Jason's voice choked. "They had no choice. The bills were piling up, and we couldn't keep up with the payments anymore. They sold it to cover part of the debt. It's gone, Daniel. I don't know what to say anymore." I leaned back in my chair, looking out the window of my small apartment. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. A wave of satisfaction washed over me, mixed with something darker, a realization that no matter how vindicated I felt, it didn't heal the wound inside me. They had chosen Jason. They had given him a car and thrown my efforts in my face, and now, with all their mistakes catching up to them, they were losing everything. I wanted to gloat, wanted to rub salt in their wounds, but I didn't say a word. For a long time, Jason kept talking, his voice choked up, but I couldn't feel pity. Finally, I spoke, my voice firm. "Jason, you didn't deserve to lose that car. I should have known this would happen, that they wouldn't have the means to keep up. They've always expected me to clean up their mess, but this time, I wasn't there to pick up the pieces." Jason was silent, possibly shocked by this new hardness in my voice. "I warned them too," I continued, my words now sharp as a knife. "When they handed me that bill instead of a gift, I told them it would come back to bite them, and now it has." Jason's voice grew desperate. "Daniel, please, I know this is bad, but they didn't mean for this to happen. We never wanted it to be like this." I was silent, enjoying the feeling of power for the first time in my life. In this moment, I was finally free from their grip, from years of being second best, the one they took for granted. "You know what, Jason?" I said coldly. "Maybe that's a lesson they needed to learn the hard way. If they had been a little more thoughtful, they wouldn't be in this situation. I hope it hurts them." Jason started crying, and for a second, I almost felt guilty, but then the image of my parents' smug smiles as they handed me that bill flashed in my mind. I felt no guilt. Jason's sobs echoed through the phone, but I offered no comfort. Instead, I hung up, and for the first time, I felt a sense of justice. The scales had balanced, and my family was finally learning the consequences of their actions. The next few days passed in silence. I kept to myself, staying in my small apartment, not answering any messages or calls. I didn't even check my phone much, except to catch up on work. It truly felt like freedom. I didn't have to deal with anyone's drama anymore, didn't have to worry about pleasing people who were never pleased. Then, on a Sunday afternoon, As I was making a hot cup of tea, looking out the small window of my apartment, my phone rang. An unidentified number. I was about to ignore it, but something inside told me it was time to face it head on. I picked up, feeling like I was opening Pandora's box. "Daniel?" My mother's voice came through, shaky and desperate. "Please, can you just listen to us?" I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly. They had taken their time coming to me, and it was strange to know they were finally on the other end of the line, begging for my attention. "Daniel, we know we've made a mistake," she continued, her voice weaker than I'd ever heard it. "We should never have put all that pressure on you. We should have been better. We're so sorry. Please come home, we'll fix everything, just come home." I could hear the plea in her voice, but it didn't move me. This was the woman who had always told me to be responsible while giving Jason anything he wanted, the woman who, instead of appreciating my hard work, had handed me a bill for their failures. "Mom, you're sorry?" I said slowly, letting the bitterness seep into every word. "What exactly are you sorry for? Buying Jason a car while I had to deal with your mess, is that what you're sorry for? Or are you sorry you had to sell it?" There was silence on the other end. I could almost hear her brain trying to process it, the reality of what she had done sinking in. "Daniel, we never meant for things to get this bad," my mother said, her voice now choked. "Please, just come home, we'll do anything to fix it. You're still our son, and we love you." I rolled my eyes, though she couldn't see me. It was almost pathetic, hearing her beg after everything they had put me through. I couldn't help but wonder, if I hadn't left, if I had meekly accepted that bill, would she ever have said she loved me? "I'm sure you do love me," I said, my voice flat. "But love doesn't fix years of favoritism and neglect. You didn't think about me once when you made those decisions, not once." I was silent, letting that sink in. Then, I added, "And frankly, I don't need your apology. It's too late for that. You should have thought about this before." The line was silent again, and I could feel my anger rising, but I kept it in check, just as I had learned to do over the years. "I'm not coming home, Mom. You've made your choices, and now you're living with those consequences. I'm not here to clean up your mess anymore." There was a long pause, and then my father's voice came on, sounding strained, desperate. "Daniel, please, we were wrong. We see that now. We didn't mean for it to be like this. We never meant to push you away." I let out a small laugh, empty and bitter. "You didn't mean to push me away? Well, you had a funny way of showing it. You buy a car for Jason, hand me a bill, and expect me to just keep taking it. You didn't push me away, you kicked me to the curb." "Please son," my father's voice choked. "We were just trying to give Jason something. We wanted him to feel proud about his graduation, and we thought that would make everything right. But we've realized it wasn't worth it, not if it means losing you." It almost felt like they were groveling now, and the power was completely in my hands. A part of me wanted to forgive them, wanted to say it would all be okay, but I knew I would only be lying to myself. It wouldn't change the past, wouldn't make them respect me anymore. "You're right about one thing, Dad," I said, my voice sharp. "You've lost me, and you're not getting me back just because you suddenly realized your mistakes." I was silent, letting the silence stretch between us. "I'm done here," I added coldly. "So, keep your apologies, keep your guilt, and the next time you want to celebrate someone, maybe think about the person you're leaving behind." Without waiting for a response, I ended the call, feeling oddly strange, a mix of liberation and profound weariness. I stared at my phone for a long time, the satisfaction of finally standing up for myself sinking in. They had taken me for granted for too long, but now they knew what it felt like to lose me. I could hear their apologies echoing in my mind, but it didn't matter. They had their chance, and now they would have to live with those consequences. The weeks passed following that call, and I heard nothing more from them. The silence was almost larger than the chaos that had led to that moment. Sometimes I wondered if they had given up on me completely or were just regrouping to try a different approach. I continued to live my life, working, enjoying the peace and freedom I had fought so hard to create. My freelance work had grown, and I had even rented a larger, brighter apartment with a small office and a balcony overlooking the city. Then, on one afternoon, 6 months after I had left, I heard a knock at the door. At first, I thought it might be a delivery, but when I looked through the peephole, my heart skipped a beat. My parents were standing there, soaking wet from the rain, looking older and more tired than I had ever seen them. My mother had dark circles under her eyes, and my father, a man who had always stood tall with pride, now had his shoulders slumped as if carrying the weight of the world. I stood there, my hand on the doorknob, not sure what to do. A part of me wanted to open the door, another part wanted to pretend I wasn't home. But then, I saw my mother put something down, a small box, and begin to walk away. My father put his hand on her shoulder, and they walked away together, disappearing into the rain. I waited for a moment, then opened the door. The box was damp but intact. I brought it inside, placed it on the kitchen table, and stared at it for a long time before finally opening it. Inside was a simple handwritten letter, the paper wrinkled from being folded too many times. My mother's handwriting, scrawled and rushed, as if written with shaking hands. Dearest Daniel, we don't expect you to forgive us. We know we hurt you, and we've realized we lost something much more important than a car or a gift we could never afford to give you. We weren't fair to you. We always expected too much, always believed you would be there, always thought you would be the strong one, while we gave all our attention and resources to Jason. We were wrong, Daniel. We were wrong to treat you that way, and especially wrong to think you would accept that role forever. When you left, we were angry. But as time passed, we started to see things more clearly. We lost a wonderful son because of our selfishness and short-sightedness. Not because of the car. Not because of the money. But because we never saw your true value, never appreciated your efforts and achievements the way we should have. Now, when it's too late, we understand that you were the greatest gift we ever had. And we threw it away. We want you to know that we're sorry, and we will always love you, even if you never come back. Don't forget that. Mom and Dad. Beneath the letter was an old photograph, slightly faded, Jason and me when we were little, about 5 years old, smiling brightly on a beach, building a sandcastle together. I remembered that day, one of the rare memories where we were truly brothers, not rivals, not competitors, just two kids enjoying time together. I read the letter twice, 3 times, my eyes scanning the lines, emotions welling up in my chest. Was this a real apology? Or just another attempt to pull me back into their toxic circle? A part of me wanted to crumple the letter and throw it in the trash. But another part, a deeper and perhaps more mature part, recognized that maybe they had really changed. Not because they wanted me back to help them in their financial troubles, but because they truly realized what they had lost. I left the letter on the table and stepped out onto the balcony, looking out at the city glistening in the rain. I didn't know if I could forgive them, or if we could fix what was broken. But perhaps, just maybe, this was the beginning of something new. As for Jason, I had received a few more messages from him over the months, apologizing for being caught in the middle, sorry for not seeing what was happening. I had ignored those too. He had chosen his side all along. He would have to live with the consequences of that choice, at least for a while. Life went on. I continued to grow my business, continued to move forward with my plans. I started dating a girl I met at a web design workshop, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I was building a life truly for myself, not just reacting to others' expectations and needs. The next day, I sent a short message to Aunt Karen, just to let her know I had received the letter and was thinking about it. I didn't promise anything, didn't commit to anything, but it was a door cracked open, not wide, just enough for light to filter through. Everything was on my terms now, and I wouldn't let anyone, especially my family, take that away from me. If they wanted back into my life, they would have to do it on my terms, with respect, with acknowledgement, and above all, with the understanding that I was no longer the child willing to accept second place in their hearts. A week after that letter, I got a call from Jason. I considered not answering, but then decided to face him. Daniel? His voice came through, carrying an uncertainty I had never heard from my confident brother. Yeah, I replied, trying to keep my voice neutral. I don't know if you got the letter from Mom and Dad, but I wanted to tell you that. I'm sorry. I was a jerk. I didn't see what was happening all these years, the way Mom and Dad treated you differently from me. Or maybe I did see, but I didn't want to admit it because it benefited me. I swallowed hard, feeling a lump in my throat. I got the letter, I said, my voice gentler than I had intended. But you know, Jason, it's not just about the car, or the bill. It's about my entire life feeling like I was second best, always having to fight for recognition while you were handed everything. I know, Jason said, his voice choked. And I don't know if this helps, but I want you to know that. I miss you. Things haven't been the same since you left. The house. It doesn't feel like home anymore. I was silent for a moment, surprised at the sincerity in his voice. I miss you too, Jason, I finally admitted. I miss the brother I used to know, before things got complicated. Could we meet? Jason asked, hope evident in his voice. Just the two of us. No parents, no drama. Just talk? I thought about it, weighing all the possibilities, all the risks. It was still too early to say if I could forgive them, if we could fix what was broken. But perhaps this was a beginning, a small step towards something different, a relationship built on mutual respect. Okay, I finally said. We can try. As for them, well, they would always have their regrets, but at least I wasn't carrying their burden anymore. An ending had come, but it wasn't a tragic one. It was a reminder that sometimes you have to walk away from people who never give you a chance to be seen so that you can finally see yourself clearly. And for me, this was the beginning of a new chapter. A chapter where I was the author, not just a supporting character in someone else's story. I don't know what the future will bring. Maybe one day, I'll be able to forgive them completely. Maybe we'll build a new relationship, different from what we had before. Or maybe we'll continue separately, with only dim connections and occasional meetings. But one thing I know for certain, I will never go back to being who I was, someone who always accepted second place, someone who never fought for what they deserved. Because I've learned the most valuable lesson, the most important relationship you can nurture is the one with yourself. And that's a relationship I'm no longer willing to neglect. Today, as I look back on the 6 months that have passed, I can't help but wonder, was I right to leave? Should I give my family another chance? I don't know the definite answer, but I know that my decision to leave changed everything, not just for me, but for them too. Sometimes, you have to lose something to know its true value. For me, I lost the illusion that family is always safe, and through that, I found the strength to build my own safe place. For them, they lost a son, a brother, and through that, perhaps they found awareness of what truly matters. And maybe, just maybe, that loss will bring something better for all of us in the future. That night, as I was getting ready for bed, I received a text from Jason. "Thank you for today. It was good to see you again. Maybe we could try doing this more often?" I stared at the message for a moment, considering my response. Finally, I typed, "I'd like that. Next week?" Sometimes, small steps are all we need on the path to healing. Life goes on. And this time, it's my life. Years later, as I sit in my small home, my wife rocking our baby daughter to sleep in the next room, I realized that the hardest decision I ever made, walking away from my family, was also the one that saved me. My parents and I never returned to a perfect relationship, but we reached a kind of peace. They learned to respect my boundaries, and I learned to forgive without forgetting. Jason and I grew closer over time, rebuilding our brotherhood on a new foundation of respect and understanding. And as I look down at my sleepy daughter's face, I vow to myself that she will never feel like I once felt, never feel second best, never feel unloved or unappreciated. She will know that she is loved unconditionally, not for her achievements or what she can do, but simply because she is my daughter. Because that's the most important lesson I learned from all of this. Real love doesn't come with conditions, doesn't put a price tag, and never makes you feel like you have to prove your worth. And that's a lesson I'll carry with me for the rest of my life.